those of you who are joining us, I'm seeing 8 so far. The numbers are clicking up. That's good.
Yeah.
Hey, Britt.
Hey, Brett.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it.
Hey, Brett.
One minute to countdown, huh, people?
Yeah. So what number Zoom meeting is it for everybody today?
5. I'm at 5. No, 6. This would be 6.
It's my first. I'm off today.
Oh, this
All right.
this is my second.
This is my first on Zoom.
Yeah, Zoom. As typically, if I'm not answering if someone tries to call or whatever, I typically shoot back a text say, "Hey, I'm in a Zoom meeting." Or yeah, so.
So we'll give it just a minute here as people are logging on.
Good. That's good.
Yeah, I've got another several today. Yes, and it's like that. It's like some days it's either all Zoom meetings or like no Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
But the no Zoom meetings somehow calls and things pop up anyway. So.
All right. I was gonna say if you're not on the Zoom, you're on a phone call. One or the other. So yeah. So you're practicing social distancing, right?
Yep.
And then yeah.
It'll be really interesting to see after all of this, how much of this lasts, how much of this we keep using, or do we forget about it all in a month? I can't wait to see what that's like.
I'm in meetings that are fairly multinational. Like I was in one early one morning. There are folks from the U.S., folks from Brazil, folks from South America, from Hong Kong, and they're saying it's not going away.
No.
That we will keep a semblance of this because we've adapted so quickly, and so it will be interesting to see what part of it does. But it's pretty effective.
Yeah. I like them. I think for the most part, like I was telling someone, I mean, they're very useful, but it's the whole thing of trying to manage your time with everything else, so making sure you have a good space in between the next Zoom meeting.
That's the trick.
Yeah, that's the trick. That's it, because you're like, oh, I can go ahead and get this done. I get this done. I get this done. You know, and next thing it's like 4 o'clock and you're still at your computer and you didn't move, eat, do anything. You know, on top of that, you know, so it's just kind of getting everything else done at your computer. So that gets a little interesting. But yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. I see that we have some repeat customers who were following our panel discussion yesterday. Yesterday, we had a conversation with people working around the state. We had State Public Defender Kelly Thompson, Dane County Sheriff Dave Mahoney. We had Katoya Roberts from the Advancement Project in Milwaukee. And we had Alice Pauser of the Meter Foundation that works with women incarcerated and reentering. So it was a really interesting discussion. You can find that on our YouTube page. If you're interested in checking that out, you can search Justified Anger on YouTube and just look for our logo. There is also a metal band called Justified Anger. So that is not us.
Nehemiah.
So at Nehemiah, we focus working on both things, both from a program perspective that deals directly with individuals, and we also do things from a systems perspective. So yesterday was our systems perspective conversation, and today we're going to be talking with Nehemiah staff to learn more about what they're doing to mobilize with people in this community and what we're hearing from people in this community and in the state, people who are incarcerated, reentering, their loved ones, and staff. So we have today Reverend Dr. Alex G., who is the founder and president of Nehemiah, as you all I'm sure know. We also have Anthony Cooper, who is the vice president of Reentry Services and Strategic Partnerships. We have Aaron Hicks, who is our reentry specialist, and we have Rebecca Barber, who is our relatively new housing director coordinator. So thank you all for joining. And panelists, I'm going to let you know, if you do mute your video, we won't see you on the screen. So if you can please keep your video on, that'd be great. Unless, of course, someone walks in naked, then mute it, because, yeah. Those of you who are watching, there are two things that you can do. Depending on how the conversations go, we'll try to make a little bit of time to take some Q&A from you. But if we don't get all the questions, we will be posting those questions on our website after the panel. We'll try to get the answers to your questions. There is a chat window. You can either send a message to panelists or panelists and attendees if you want to chat with your fellow attendees. Or if you just want to submit a question, it'll be easiest for us to follow your questions if you click on Q&A, and you can type a question in there, and then I'll see it. And if we're able, we will take that question. That out of the way, I want to turn it over to Dr. G to open it up.
Dr. Reese, thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, I just want to say welcome to all of our participants, and we were happy to be able to use this technology that we're all becoming somewhat familiar with, maybe not so comfortable with, but familiar with. But we appreciate having you here. But also kudos to our panelists. I'm very proud of our staff and the work that they do, and I really respect the fact that with the advent of COVID-19, that we didn't pull everything off the table concerning what we wanted to do in terms of educating the broader community about issues concerning reentry. So I really appreciate the fact that you're knowledgeable about the subject matter, but also of technology, so that you can bring those two together. Our nonprofit, Nehemiah, was started in '92, and the concept was really to strengthen the African-American family. That's what we set out to do for decades. As I was finishing my doctorate degree, and I was trying to bring my dissertation to an end, I just decided to call a colleague, Jerome Dillard, on a whim to say, because the focus of my dissertation was the impact of fatherlessness on the Black community. And I just said, do you think that there's any connection between mass incarceration, reentry issues, and fatherlessness in the Black community? And he looked at me as if I were speaking Martian and started firing away links to different bureaus of justice and statistics and state reporting and county reporting. And it opened my eyes. And it also saddened me that I hadn't realized the impact that mass incarceration, over incarceration, had taken on our community. So he started feeding me things to read. And I remember reading Mark Maurer's Race to Incarcerate. And he stated that in the early 1970s, that the US government was actually looking at shutting down prisons because they're being shown to be ineffective. And so how do they go from that to becoming a huge entity that, which in many cases has been privatized and traded publicly on the stock exchange? It blew my mind. But what else happened is that as I began to interact with men and women who had been formerly incarcerated, it reminded me that I was interested in the issues of fatherlessness because of not having my own biological father in my life. My parents were divorced when I was young. But the interaction that I had with folks who were formerly incarcerated helped me to understand my father was in and out of prison, and I had never processed that. In and out of jail, and I never processed that. And so all of this work that I've done around mentoring, helping boys, helping girls, fatherhood, fatherlessness, I had no idea that what was really eroding at my soul was the absence of my father due to over-incarceration. And having studied his story a little bit, he was traumatized, his father was physically abusive, there probably were mental health issues. There are a number of things that were going on. Now, surely he committed crimes, but he was a sharecropper until he moved to Chicago and met my mother. And the horrible effects of that on the Black male psyche, or Black person's psyche, was just tremendous. And in those days, we didn't have people to talk to. We didn't have folks that we could sit on the couch with and process our issues. And so we resorted to a number of things that caused the trouble. And so I just want to say that we have not just stumbled upon this focus of reentry inside our organization because it's in vogue, it's chic, and it's what people do now. It's because the impact that it's had on breaking up families, its impact that it's had on Black men during their childbearing years, the impact that it's had on our economics, on our Black women, and on our Black children can all now be meted out in issues related to health, poverty, education, illiteracy, you name it. And so we're trying to overhaul a system. And the thing that makes me very proud about my team, which is led by Anthony Cooper, and our organization, is that we not only focus on the programmatic part of this, that is reentry services, weekly support program, bi-weekly support programs, housing support, food support, job placement, but all those the systemic issues. We have a team that meets, and it ranges from everyone from former federal prosecutors to nonprofit leaders to the DA, the sheriff, the state public defender, and we look at how we can bring change to the system. So when we talk about reentry, Nehemiah and our team look at this very holistically, and I'm sure you'll hear some of that coming in our discussions today. To be able to address the issues on a program level, on a systemic level, is a major undertaking, but that's an undertaking that we understood right from the outset, and that's why we're here today. So I want to thank you all for listening to my team. They have lived experience, the lived cross-cultural experience, and they still have the capacity within their humanity to want to reach out beyond their own pain and circumstances and help those understand these issues, even those who are in the positions that cause them to be sent to prison. And so in the first place. And so I feel like this is a unique blend. It's a gift to have these folks in our community and a tremendous gift to have them on my staff. I know that you're in for a treat, and I just want to welcome everyone and just lay out some history to understand this is an immense problem, so our solutions cannot be minute. We must be as strategic in dismantling all of this as those who have been in power were strategic in putting them together. And so thank you again for your time and for being a part of this experience today.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. G. So the first question I want to ask of you all is just to tell us a little bit about how long have you been in your role at Nehemiah, and what was the path that got you here? And if you could do that, just take about a minute or two. We'll start with you, Coop.
Yeah, so for me, so actually, when I first started at Nehemiah, I actually was doing job development. Pastor G and I had met with an organization to be able to help me come in, and actually, I kind of came in originally as a contract. And I said, I'll come in and help for this amount of time because I was thinking about starting my own business again. And so this is just to mainly focus on job development and placing men who have been incarcerated. Pastor G asked if I would place, got a donor to help in that process, and asked if I would place 10 people within that time, I think it was like a 3-month time or whatnot, and provide additional support. I ended up placing, I think it was like 65 people with different jobs around Madison. And so that was kind of the beginning, but then also, by having my own lived experience is also being able to network and navigate different situations a little bit differently. Those were things that definitely we needed to be brought to the table. Then eventually I became the director of reentry services and then kept going from there.
Let's go to Aaron next.
So my journey to Nehemiah is quite interesting. It actually started while I was incarcerated. I had a young man come to me. I had never really attended any churches at all, and I had a young man. He had the exact same name as mine, Aaron. He gave me a piece of paper while I was in my room. He was like, "You should check out this church, Fountain of Life. And here's the pastor name, Pastor G." So that was probably in like 2008, maybe 2009. I never even thought that like I would explore that. It was just a piece of paper to me. He handed it to me. I kept it and kind of went on my way. And in 2010, I actually came home from prison, and I was in a halfway house. And ironically, I had an attorney who was working with me. He said that the day I got out of prison, he would actually be there. He was like, and that was in 2006 actually. And sure enough, 2010, I was at the halfway house. Here's this attorney came and, saw me, visit me, so on and so forth. But he wanted to introduce me to someone. And that introduction was Jerome Dillard. And from that point on, Jerome and I, we clicked immediately. And I definitely believe it was the hand of the Lord in all of it. And so I started attending VBB, Voices Beyond Bars, and that was a program that Jerome was running at that time. And
If I could just let everyone know, Jerome Dillard, in case our viewers don't know, is the lead organizer for Expo, Ex-Incarcerated People Organizing. He's worked with Wisdom, he's worked in the Department of Corrections, in the county jails, and he's done all that with a history of incarceration himself. So
indeed,
thanks, go ahead.
indeed. So in that, as I started to attend VVB, again, what was ironic was Pastor G started a group, and it was more focused on men and the struggles that men go through. It was a space where men could be able to talk about things, and he started a group called Man Up. And so it was an offspin from VBB, but ultimately that was how I started my connection to Nehemiah. From that point on, Pastor G and I built our own relationship. And in 2012, I believe I started working at Nehemiah. And ultimately that group that he started, I became the facilitator of that same group that I actually went through. So that was my intro to Nehemiah.
Cool, thanks, Aaron. Rebecca, how did you get here?
Well, I'm very lucky. I'm very blessed to be here. So that I want to say that first and foremost. I have previous management experience as a employment agency manager. So back when Aaron actually first got out, that's what I was doing, ironically enough. So I met Aaron back in what, 2010, something like that.
That's correct.
Yeah. So I
gave me my first job.
Yeah. So here we are. I have 10 years experience at 89.9 FM WORT. And if anybody's familiar with that, we do a lot of connection with the incarcerated community and linking them with the outside. So a lot of inside out, outside in, following the things that have happened over the past 10 years, listening to concerns, linking with family, giving voices to people that otherwise feel they don't have any. I'm currently an advocate and leader with the social justice campaign with the ACLU of Wisconsin. And I also do have lived experience with trauma. So I think all of these things after the years, linking with different people and just understanding, it ended up leading me to what my path was supposed to be in the long run. And I'm blessed to be here.
Yeah. We're happy to have you here as well.
Indeed.
So so we're always busy. You all are always, constantly taking calls, doing visits, and doing what you can to make sure that people have what they need to be successful in the community. But Coop, you're in an interesting role because you not only work with individual people, but you also work with city agencies, county agencies, Department of Corrections, and other systems providers to try to create better pathways for people to get integrated. So considering all that, how has COVID-19 affected that work? And then are there any other organizations that you've been working with or in communication with that has kind of changed since all of this happened?
I think, definitely, like we kind of spoke about it a little bit earlier, as far as the Zoom meetings are been definitely interesting, but at the same time, there's some things that we had to kind of pull back away from because we're not unable to have the same jail access and things of that nature, but still finding different routes of being able to communicate with people who are currently incarcerated, whether if it's by phone or by a phone, or for the most part is by phone, because we're not even doing video chats right now. We have people who are sending emails from prison as well. So those things are somewhat working, but it's still a different level of support because you don't have the same type of security that what you would have if we would go there on a regular visit. But then also, even with the city and county, it is pretty much from Zoom call to Zoom call, trying to work out different ways of being able to navigate what support would look like, and then also even making a direct connection with the individuals as well when we can. Yeah, this is, it's because when we, in our world of things, we have to think about privacy and things of that nature, because there's certain conversations that we won't be able to have over the phone, because everything is recorded, everything is, it can and will be used against them if they say certain things, and we make sure that we're being very mindful of that in our conversations as well. So I mean, it's a new process, but I feel like we're navigating it, and making sure that we are definitely giving all the support that we can, but with additional partners as far as from Dane County, social services to the office, victim witness to other nonprofits here in Madison, from something from Boys and Girls Club to or even some of our other partners with UW staff as well. So we're doing all that we can with what we have. I think one of the blessings about that is that that's something that for most of us, we've always done that. We've always had to figure out a way to be able to navigate the system, especially us who have had that lived experience. So to get things done. So, and we're doing that now.
Yeah, thanks. So Aaron, you run our Man Up group that meets for a couple hours twice a week, and many of the people that come there are from the county jails on work release or Huber privileges. But you also do a lot of check-in. So how has all of this changed your ability to communicate with the people you work with?
Well, to echo just some of the things that Anthony talked about, not being able to go to the jail and have that direct communication with the guys there, that's probably more difficult than anything. But in that, a lot of guys are still reaching out through phone calls, and it's a lot of hysteria. And just me personally, I feel for these individuals just because they're in a very vulnerable situation. And it's hard living, under these restraints when you got a lot of stuff coming at you, especially if they got legal issues that's unfinished, and they don't have the support that normally we're able to provide for them. And also them being able to come to the group just to get that support. So those things have been much more difficult. The time is much more shortened because a phone call can only last about 15 minutes, give or take. But in all of that, we're still working with individuals out in the community. I'm being very mindful of individuals, just keeping the distance between each other. It's a little frustrating overall, just because I'm a people's person. I naturally gravitate to people, and I operate more with people than from a distance. So I'm just getting used to that. I am using protection and being mindful of of this virus, because it is very serious. However, I still understand that we operate off of working with people's lives, right? And so at the end of the day, it's about how can we help, people live comfortably and be effective out in the community. So it's a balancing act, but it's a necessity, because again, at the end of the day, we are working with people's lives, and anytime we can do something to assist, to help them, to make their life, the quality of life for them better, that's what we want to accomplish out of that. But again, it's it's very different. And man, I'm so zoomed out. Man, I never imagined being on Zoom so much, but here we are. And so, but again, it's a blessing to still be able to comfort people in this time of hysteria, and try to just create a space where, people know that despite what's going on, we're still there for them, that you can reach out to us, you can call us, and we'll figure out something, a line of communication that we can be there to assist them. So.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. D.
One thing I just want to say briefly is that the work that these gentlemen do is amazing. Because of their criminal background, there are probably many parts of social services or state government where they could not work because of that. But yet that background is what makes them so tremendously valuable and insightful, and a true resource to our community. So I just want to mention that we need more folks like them working. But I think the very process of hiring people with their background prohibits this level of expertise and in key positions. I'm not teaching them how to do reentry work. This is their lived experience. They're coaching me on what to do and how to supervise them or what they need the flexibility to do. And so just for anyone who's thinking about how do we do more of this inside our own organization, you have to really be willing to be led by those you lead and understand that lived experience is more important than your managerial experience, because they really are shaping this by lived experience and by what they have determined needs to happen for the success of folks re-entering our community.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a whole different world on this end, and it's something that sort of by design, we as general public members don't get a lot of detail, and we don't really get to see inside this world beyond the extreme fiction of things like Law and Order and other kinds of crime shows that are on. So if you are a business out there and looking to understand this better so that you can make hires of people who have a history of incarceration, let us know, because we can help you work through some of that. Rebecca, you came on board shortly before all of this happened, so this has been kind of an interesting ride for you. But you are dealing, responsible for our properties. We have 4 properties. We have, and I'll let you say a little bit more about that. But what are you doing to keep our houses safe? What are you doing to keep Nehemiah staff and tenants safe? And then what are you hearing from the guys that live in our houses?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to Pastor G, because the point that he just made is really something that you can carry on to all of what we do. A lot of times what I think the general public does miss, and thank you to everyone who's tuned in to get this knowledge, is that even if you're given a sentence and that sentence ends, for many, if not most, of individuals who have spent time incarcerated, that is automatically still a life sentence. And what happens is, even if you get released and you're back in the community and you're working, those things still follow you. And it does limit what you can do as far as jobs. It can limit the way that people view you as having general conversation. It limits you internally. So when you say, what are we doing to keep people safe? Obviously, the first answer for most people is going to be, yes, we've handed out gloves. Yes, we've provided cleaning materials. We also gave instructions onto the safest way to use cleaning materials and which things not to mix together, things like that. We're posting information. We're doing daily house checks to make sure they're okay. But the biggest part of safety with our demographic in our community, not just us, but everyone as a whole, is to understand that safety also includes your mental health and your well-being. And so part of what we do is, yes, we're delivering things, but with that, we're also giving the information, saying, what can they do to make themselves feel like they're doing everything they can do, addressing the needs that they are sharing with us as far as job loss or worried about the outcome. You have a lot of individuals that the community has stated, a lot of people have said, this feels like being incarcerated, but it isn't, and it's not. You do have a lot of people that might have post-traumatic stress and have experienced results of that from their time being incarcerated. But the reality of the situation is this COVID-19 stay-at-home order is not incarceration. And the most important thing we can do is try to bridge, like we're doing, trying to bridge that gap of communications, listening to the guys. What are your concerns? If there's tools that we have that can help them, provide them with the tools. Offer some resources. Most importantly, like Erin said, sit down and listen. Give them time. Sometimes what you need is just to get it off your chest and listen. And many times when you've had a community that spent a lot of time in confinement, that's very difficult. You're already coming out and you're feeling like you're judged. You're already facing the struggles as it is trying to get back to the person what you thought you were or want to become. There's so many other things around this that are considered safety that we address, not just bleach and masks and things like that. So I think that's just really important for the community to understand that there isn't an us versus them when it comes to these kinds of discussions. Community does in fact involve all of us, whether you've been incarcerated or you haven't. It's really a whole package deal. So we try to come in with that mindset and do the best that we can so that they can become the best they can be as well.
Thanks. Rebecca, you mentioned some tools that you might have to help people. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What kinds of tools?
Yeah. Tools, meaning any type of resources. So, you have some people that may be struggling with former addiction, or maybe don't know how to handle being stuck alone. Maybe they are people persons, if that's how you want to put it, people. And this is traumatic. It's a traumatic experience for them to feel like they're isolated and secluded. So linking people with organizations, whether it be sponsors, maybe there's some concerns of, I don't want to go back to certain things. If I have that tool that we can give them, here's a number you can call, or this is a person that's reached out. Nehemiah has a tremendous, amazing group of volunteers that are consistently asking, what can we do to help? So utilizing that and mobilizing those people in those areas, those are all tools that we can provide for them. There's been a tremendous outreach as far as the community goes, both private and public sectors giving back food donations, if there's clothing concerns, people who just want to talk, or what can we do? So linking those two people, remembering that a lot of this population doesn't necessarily have all of the training for Zoom meetings, or they don't know how to use smartphones. Some do, some don't. So we have some limitations as to what the new normal is going to be versus what it is now. So us going in and trying to use tools means, how are we going to be able to not only tell them where they can go, but make sure they know how. And then if there's if there's some sort of a balance that we need to try to bridge that, then taking it that step forward and saying, okay, if you don't know, let's make sure that you get trained on how. So there's a lot that goes into it, but it's necessary. And I think the community being aware that this is still a thing, and it affects everybody. That's step forward. That's step number one.
And also, just to even add on to that, as far as, and what Rebecca is referring to, what we call a hard handoff for people that who are ready, right? So being able to, again, help people navigate to get them to where they're at, because it's more than just giving them a piece of paper. It's also,
Can you explain what that means, Coop? Hard
a
handoff.
hard handoff is a lot of times is either we make the direct connection, whether if we're taking them to an agency, or we're also bringing the agency to them as well, depending on what that person's situation is. We may have a meeting at the house. We may so it's all those different pieces that are direct connections. So it's not which helps being able to not necessarily remove us from the situation or from that person's challenge, but still letting them know that, hey, we're here to support, but we also want to make sure that you're here with someone else who we trust as well, that want to support you. So it becomes it becomes very organic, but then also to know, one, that we're doing this together as a community, because at the end of the day, I'm talking about from our community partners to people who just live in the neighborhood who wants to see something change. It takes all of us to get this work done. If we don't allow that to be the focus, we're already going backwards. But in our agency, we make sure that is our focus, and that's why we're bringing so many different people from volunteers to business, the business community, and also other nonprofits, to say, hey, look, let's get this work done, because we don't want the next 5 years or even the next year for us to be stuck in the same spot. So,
yeah, thanks, Coop. So, I really want to take some time and just have you all go a little bit deeper about the specific challenges for people who have been incarcerated, or even family members who have incarcerated loved ones right now, because I know you all are hearing from a lot of different people right now. But I think maybe we'll start with Aaron. Aaron, you've had a long experience in, a long experience out. And so can you talk about, just from your perspective, what are the unique challenges that you face, and then what the guys that you're talking to, what does that look like compared to me or Rebecca, who are just dealing with this in general?
Well, I think probably the biggest struggle is though we hear this epidemic that's taking place, one of the things you don't hear specifically, like in prisons, there are epidemics that break out in the prisons. It never reaches to the community. And so oftentimes you have to learn to navigate through some of that stuff. This being so open, and it's affecting people all across the world, I think we're hearing it, but we don't always know what's happening to the individuals that's incarcerated. And you know, for me having that experience, it makes it that much more harder for me to, you know, in one breath you hearing, you have your officials or people that's from prison that work there, giving you information that we have everything under control. This is okay, so on and so forth. But to have walked a mile in that, I know like that's not like 100% true, and that's a hard statement. But I know, for those individuals, they don't have people to advocate for them. They don't have individuals to reach out to make sure that they're getting fair treatment, making sure they stay safe. They don't have any of that, and it's almost like you just kind of have to accept whatever you get. And that's not to bash anybody, but it's just the reality of being incarcerated. You're kind of lost almost in the sense of nobody actually knows what's going on inside of those institutions, but the institution itself, right? And I didn't had some bad experience. I didn't have some good experiences as well, but ultimately, I know that when I talk to the men who are still in there, they're very scared. And it ain't, this ain't funny. This they life. They don't know if they coming home for sure or not, right? So it's hard for me. I have to be honest with you. Even for the individuals that's out in the community, again, it's hard for me because I understand that struggle. I had to walk it. And so being mindful of that, but not allowing my passion to overstep reason in the sense of putting myself in unsafe situations, right? But still just being there for the individuals to help them navigate through this, to comfort them and let them know, like, we done been through worse situations than this and we got through it, so we can get through to this. Really just being a breath of encouragement and letting them know that it's hope at the end of the day. We have to do the things that we need to do to keep ourselves safe, but we got to stay in the right mind and in the right space. So if that means praying with an individual, if that means just listening to an individual, whatever it means to help them get through it, that's really the objective. That's my objective. And because I've lived it, I know it's hard for individuals, but this too shall pass as well. So
Aaron, you can feel free to decline this, but I just want to ask you, for the people who, the jokes being made about this is like prison, being on quarantine, is there anything you can share to kind of give insight to what actual prison was like compared to your quarantine? Just your frame of mind.
Well, I mean, you definitely can't go to your refrigerator or you can't even go to the bathroom when you want to. Actually, you can't do those things in prison. Those are things that you have to have permission, depending on what institution you're in. Some people, their bathroom is right there in their room, but ultimately, just that experience is frightening because you realize, most people don't realize that about 90 to 95% of people who go to prison will get back out, right? But when you have an epidemic like this, you don't know if you're going to get out. You don't know if that's going to happen. You don't know if you're going to be infected by any of this stuff. So that creates a whole nother mindset. Your mental is changed even more now because you're operating out of fear, right? And so because I've had that experience, one of the biggest outbreaks that took place while I was in prison was Mercer. And I had never even heard nothing about that before. But ultimately, there was a really bad breakout, and I was blessed not to contract that. However, a lot of people did. And so, again, being incarcerated, there's so many different things that can happen that the community won't know anything about. And so it's just hard. It's hard, but the quarantine has, I mean, it can't compare to being incarcerated. Like people are just, really what people are getting is a small glimpse of a bigger picture. And that's what people live day in and day out in prison, is what they witness out here in the community.
But Aaron, I think also, just to even add on to that though, for everything that you just said, there's a choice. In prison, you have no choice whatsoever, right?
That's right.
You have a choice whether or not if you go outside. You have a choice whether or not if you put a mask on. You have a choice if you wear wear gloves. Those are all as I believe, even Sheriff Mahoney may have even mentioned this yesterday, as far as those are all the liberties that are taken away from you when you are incarcerated. When you're inside of your house, you can eat what you want to eat. You can do the things what you want to do.
You're earning money in your house. You're earning
right,
maybe
exactly.
80 cents an hour in prison.
For some.
Before they take cost out.
Exactly. So those are the things. So it is nothing like prison.
And you actually have your loved ones around you.
Exactly. And so those are all the things that
and
I
make
think
free phone calls.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so when those comments are made, those are the things that you also have to be able to think about. You're not in a box with no choices. So I think that's just something just to be mindful of, and when people think that way. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Karen. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure I added that to what Aaron had mentioned.
Absolutely. Cooper, Rebecca, what are you seeing in terms of the extra challenges of either people that are living in our houses, people you're working with, or I guess I'll just mention now on Nehemiah's webpage, we are putting up stories of people who are currently incarcerated, and we hope to be sharing more stories of people who are on the outside. We have some videos for you and some from family members, and hopefully if anyone does work in corrections and would be willing to talk to us, we can keep these interviews completely anonymous. If you prefer, for people who are incarcerated or people just who don't want to put their name on it, we can do that. And check our website so that you can keep apprised of what people are feeling. We do also have recorded phone calls that Rebecca has done, and so you can hear what it's like to talk to a loved one on a prison line with being interrupted about notice of attorney calls and being recorded and that sort of thing. So definitely interesting listen. But what are some other things that you're hearing out here or seeing?
I do want to, before I would like for Rebecca to answer first, but I do want to say we do have people's permission, so this isn't something we're just recording. Yeah, so just want to make sure everyone knows that as well.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Yeah, from the people that are inside right now, I feel like the disconnect is there's a lot of people that are like Aaron said, they're scared. They're hearing only certain things. They're receiving certain memos to keep them updated. They're seeing what's supposed to be done. There's a retaliation fear also that comes into play realistically, of how much can I voice to my family to tell them what I'm going through? Am I going to get retaliation for saying those things? So they don't know to what level they should communicate. Also, there's things that are being reported as these are what's being done, but then you also hear different stories about, well, I'm not seeing that from the people inside. So I think there's a disconnect. On the flip side of that too, there's a lot of people that maybe are still inside or even outside that have told me it's really difficult for them to understand that people are fighting for them because they're so used to not seeing results and getting turned down. So it's almost like disappointment after disappointment and after disappointment. So you can say as much as you want, we're here for you, we're fighting, we're trying, we're doing, but unless you either put that tangible or visual or get results, it's not coming across. And these are people. It's not a case and it's not a file. It's people and it's lives. And so it's definitely something that's been on the forefront of conversations as far as I don't know what to do from in here because it feels like nothing's being done. And then you say, well, we're trying really hard. Well, who is? And you name some people. I don't see it. And I think there's just a disconnect overall to be able to get some results. And so I think that's where, Nehemiah, at least we do, I will say that we, meaning even everyone on this panel, does the most that we can possibly do with action. And I feel like that's something that community can do as well. You can say, I don't know how to help. Don't end there. do something to help. And if you don't know how, reach out. We can all link. But that action is really what is the biggest concern right now, because people just don't know. They don't know what to plan. Yes, they have phone calls, but they only get 2 a day. Yes, there's free, but those are the only 2 they get. So the communication is very limited. They can't necessarily always reach their family. So we're very lucky that a few have reached out and done phone calls with us so that they can share their concerns. But I feel like, again, that lack of having a voice, or that sitting duck syndrome, is really what the fear and anxiety has been across the board from those that are behind the walls right now, because they need to see something, and they don't feel it. And we as people need to be able to feel that connection somehow. So it's frustrating for me to a degree, because we are essential. We are out there working. We're doing things, pretty much 24/7. We get a nap every now and then. We do eat. But realistically, when it comes to people, there isn't a black and white. There isn't what's your schedule. There isn't when are you going to stop this today? We don't. And that's so important. It is so important to just keep
We had a
going
couple
for
of
people.
questions from our viewers, a couple that are pretty similar. Have you all talked to anyone who has been released, gotten furloughed due to COVID-19, or who's even had COVID-19? And number one, do you know if they're having issues with housing or jobs because people are afraid of them being extra infectious because they've been in prison? And then also, are you hearing anything about people accessing, now all doctors' visits are online or on the phone? Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, so I can speak into that. There's definitely challenges all the way around as far as, I mean, a lot of people, if a person has had COVID-19, a lot of times people are not disclosing that, right? But that's also a part of their legal right as well. So that's one piece. But then also there is a constant fear all the way around the board. Even, I have, even with putting people into housing, there's a fear there as well, right? So there's men that who I've worked with that may have just gotten out of prison, have somewhat of a stable job, but still, if we don't have some of our own housing, or if some of our other partners do not have housing that's available, and we try to go to I guess the standard landlord, a lot of times, especially when they know that this person has just been released, there is that fear, because at the same time in the media we put that fear out there even more, and by no one really truly understanding any of the challenges that are really going on with COVID, or what is going on in prison, what is going on once they're being released, haven't had then those are just some of the nitpick things that happen for right now. Hopefully, as this blows over, but again, no one really knows when, and so we have some people that are sharing apartments and things of that nature because they have to, or some people are being who don't want to necessarily be homeless, but they are homeless based on a simple fact, and it's not always because they don't have the financial ability. It's just because no one is willing to give them that opportunity, and based on their criminal record, and still not necessarily, and the fact that they came from prison, and all the stuff that is going on in prison right now. They say, hey, how are you going to affect affect my whole building? Those are the things that are being put out there. Those are the types of conversations that we are having with men. And so, it's sad, but but even before then, we thought it was bad then. It has gotten worse. And there's no really other way of putting that out there. But I think at the same time, but there are landlords, there are organizations like ours who are also doing their best to not only advocate, but also being able to push the envelope for people and being able to have those opportunities available, so we can get people in, whether if it's employment, or if it's into a job, or if it's or to even going to see going to see a doctor or whatnot, to help them navigate what that looks like. so yeah, so we're in those different pockets. But something that I think I also want to make sure that we're talking about as well, as far as with people that who have mental health challenges as well, and making sure that, you know, we're making those connections with our other community partners, but then also with those individuals to say, hey, look, if you want me to, I'll go to this appointment with you. It's up to you, but, or at least be able to drop you off, or just make those connections and make those connections firm. So yeah, I think all of us, again, it takes a community to do the things of what we do. So it's no, there's an old saying, what we talk about, there's no big eyes or little U's when it comes to the work that we're doing.
Yeah. We've got about 10 minutes left in our session today. Can you all share a little bit? We've recently gotten some funding from the emergency response dollars that have come in from the Boys and Girls Club and United Way that we're very grateful for. And it's amazing the outpouring of support that the community has shown. And so we're really glad to be able to use that for people with a criminal background, because sometimes those folks are even excluded from public support options, or for the single men that we work with, support maybe out there for children and families, but not necessarily single men. So can you talk about some of the things Nehemiah is specifically doing to get basic needs met, and if there's anything extra about mental health you want to add in?
Hopefully, well, I have my team kind of tag team on all of this. So one of the main portions is being able to make sure, because there's a lot of men that who are even in our housing that who have been laid off. So a lot of them have entry level positions, and so being able to assist with food that has been huge. The fact, and the guys have been very, very, very appreciative for us to be able to help them and offset some of their food costs and things of that nature. And also being able to, it's something that, it was a story what Rebecca had told me about, where I believe you had sent someone a message and just trying to just say, hey, look, this is, had sent someone a positive quote, and they really needed that at that time. But they also, the fact that, because that in the beginning, they did not want to share about that, hey, right now I don't have any food, I don't have this, I don't have that. They wanted to, you know, but being able to break that boundary and say, look, I really appreciate what you guys are doing, and what, you know, I may not have everything the way how I want things to be, but this has helped me tremendously. That has been a blessing. And Aaron or Rebecca, if y'all can also answer that question.
Yeah.
So I won't talk
Well,
too much.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want you guys. We got 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure that.
Well, let me just share this. There's a passage of scripture that sticks in my head. It's Proverbs 20:30, and it's only written out of the Good News Bible, but it says, sometimes it takes a painful experience to make us change our ways. You know, and through some of this tragedy, I do see some triumphs in it. I do see that people are coming together to make a difference, which is huge. And in our housing, a lot of the guys are not financially stable. And they're not able to, you know, just go to the grocery store and get some of the necessities. But based on that specific grant that was given to us by United Way, it really opened up a door for us to be able to bring the guys food, making sure that they're eating and having some necessities in the houses. So that's been huge. And I mean, the guys have really showed a lot of gratitude. And in that's fulfilling within itself, because it just shows when we come together, we can make a difference.
Right.
But what I love about it, because in that passage of scripture, it shouldn't always take pain for us to, you know, do the right thing, you know. So, but it has. We have a epidemic going on, and in that, you know, it has changed the dynamics of how we do everything. But ultimately, it has not changed our love for people. It has not changed how we work with individuals and how we come up with ways that we can make, you know, those individuals feel safe and also have an opportunity to move on in the community. I believe we operate off a model, pay it forward. So as they get stronger, they can reach out and help someone else. So that's the objective, to really continue to focus in on how to, even in this mess, how do we get a good message out of it, and how do we still show that lives are being changed, people are being helped, and we're still operating together. So just seeing the joy in people's hearts when they know, man, I really appreciate y'all brought us some food, you brought us some groceries. That's huge. That's huge. And there is no, that's priceless, right? There's no number you can put on that. It's just helping people because that's what we're supposed to be doing.
That's
And
right.
so it's fulfilling. That has been fulfilling. That's one of the most fulfilling things thus far since this epidemic has taken place for me.
I know, Pastor G, I know you were trying to jump in. I was trying to have if you want to go and then have
I just want to say, just as we've noted, just kudos to Boys and Girls Club and United Way for their efforts in helping to raise dollars for the community, Madison 365, other organizations. It really has been great to see the philanthropy of this community. But many of the issues that are being uncovered by COVID-19 are symptomatic of larger issues of disenfranchisement, poverty, and acts of discrimination against folks who've been formerly incarcerated and are impoverished. That many of the issues that are being acted out that cause individuals to be incarcerated are exacerbated by issues of inequity in education, employment, economic development. So in the outpouring of love in addressing the effects of COVID, I really want to remind the community that there is a pre-existing issue in society that makes particular groups of people prone to a crime-ridden life. And we need to take care of the residual effects of COVID-19, but also the things that put people at risk in the first place, like stress, poverty, that are related to trying to get your life together in the midst of a society that says once you paid your debt to society, you can be a free person. But we all know too much that that's not true.
Thanks for that.
You sound like you was preaching for a minute there.
Yeah. Rebecca, if you don't mind jumping in.
Just to add to that, I agree with everything that you said too, Pastor G. And I feel like, with the groceries, that alone, standing alone, is an amazing gift. Very thankful for that. And I think what the community can take away from that is it's not just that it's the groceries, it's the fact that you're personally looking out for someone's well-being and you're showing up and you're going in and you're delivering. The simple act of picking out, we actually, on one of the lists, we were able to get someone some ice cream. They wanted some ice cream. Had nothing in the kitchen. So we thought, of course, let's do that. And if you would have personally seen the look on this person's face, who picked cookies and cream? But it's really, and it's that small touch of showing up and listening and motivation and solutions. We can talk all day about what the problems are, or, gentlemen, I was having a conversation with one of the gentlemen in the houses, Aaron, you might remember how a lot of times we name bad things in threes. I woke up late, I stubbed my toe, I spilled my coffee. But how often do you name good things in threes? So the motivation portion of it, the looking for solutions and the showing up is really what what I would most like some people to take away from this is that dedication. And you're dealing with a lot of people who have disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. So to have anything stable or to anything actually come through is probably beyond your wildest dreams, is how much difference that can make in their own personal motivation each day, just to get up and get out of that room.
And if I could
we just have a couple of minutes left, so I just want to make sure that we let folks who are watching know what they can do to support the work we're doing. What can they do? How can they get involved?
I mean, from donations to volunteering to also and donations, whether if it's monetary or furniture, those types of things help. We try our best to make sure that we're providing an environment to make sure that men have a sense of dignity about themselves. Because overall, something that what I wanted to make sure I throw this out here, because the work that we do in the community, the work that others do in the community, they're really all dealing with matters of the heart and trying to help people think outside of the box and being able to also work on themselves in the mix of it all. So and then all, as well as just another thing to do is being able to connect with Justified Anger. We're all, again, it goes right back to saying we're all one big community. Let's make sure that that's the direction that we push ourselves in. What are some of the things that, if you are in those situations, what do you think will help you get by? Those are the types of things that we try to make sure that we can we get people to at least get to participate and be a part of our process. I think those will be the main things coming from me. I don't know if anyone else had something.
No, just go to the website. You can always go to Nehemiah.org.
Yeah.
You can go to the website, get involved, man. Don't just listen to us. If this has touched your heart or moved on you in any way, shape, or form, man, get involved, because we need you. Collectively, we make a difference. So whether you get involved by volunteering, you want to donate, whatever you feel like is your gift that was given to you, and you want to extend that to us, man, go to the website, communicate with us, and we'll definitely we have a whole volunteer crew.
And
you can sign up on Nehemiah. You can actually sign up on Nehemiah to make sure that you get all the mailings and things of that nature on our website. Get all the mailings of all the things that what we're doing, and then also ways of how you can participate in what we're doing as well.
And for those that are introverts and do like the quarantine, you can always write to your legislators too.
Oh, yes, good point. Yes. I don't hear from us enough.
And if you are in managerial positions, if you work in human resources, you can contact us, because we offer trainings. We can help you train and find folks. And we can also help you think through, how do you ask questions about diversifying your staff and informing your management staff so that they can make better decisions about hires and supporting our work. So contact us, because we can also help your organization do a better job of hiring formerly incarcerated individuals.
Yeah,
absolutely. And we
Get
will make a list specific to reentry needs that we have, and we'll post that on our website as well. Dr. Cake, so thanks for pointing out the little things, and I'm sure we can think of some things that our volunteers can help to add that level of care and comfort. You can also contact us through our website. So that's probably the best way. If you know someone who is currently incarcerated or who is in the community who has been recently released, or maybe they're 5-10 years out, but they're still haunted by their history of incarceration, please get them connected with us, because we want to make sure that everyone's supported and has what they need and is in a place where people truly understand what they're going through. So with that, I just want to thank everyone for watching today. Thanks to everyone for getting the information, for caring enough about the community to really learn more about this issue, and to make our community a better place. So, oh yes, another email that you can write to is justifiedanger at Nehemiah.org. We have a court observers program as well, and I just found out that you can watch court hearings right now on YouTube.
Yeah.
If you go to wicourts.gov, there's a live stream tab there. So with that, thanks everyone for watching, and we will see you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Great job, panelists.
Thank you. Great job, y'all. See y'all soon.
Thank you.
Figure it out. Do we just hang up?
Mhm.
Yep, you can go.